welcome back to 180 Days of Lang. I am Heather and I go through my lesson plans for AP Language and Composition every day of this school year. So what students have been working on in the prior lesson is independently they've been annotating the Harvey Milk Hope speech. And I did talk about if you have, for various reasons, you might be swapping that out with another text. So whatever that text is for me, I haven't decided yet what it's going to be, but if it's the Harvey Milk speech, then that's what they're bringing to class or their other annotations. But this process is going to look really familiar to what we've done for the last two before. So we've talked about different types of discussion strategies. By now, hopefully you have a sense of how much your students are willing to talk, or you can use one of those strategy suggestions if you need to shake things up a little bit. But we're going to hold a discussion of the text. We're going to emphasize, student questions, areas of concern or confusion, and then go through those rich rhetorical devices and strategies that are in the text. Then I'm going to have students work on a graphic organizer, just like the ones we've been using. I'll pull that up again, but the blank graphic organizer for this third speech. And just as we've done before, they're going to find evidence, organize it by the appeals, set up the rhetorical situation on the triangle, and then putting it all together in a thesis statement. This is probably going to take me to the end of class just to introduce it. Any remaining time, I'm going to have students work on their graphic organizer. This would be a good day too, that if you're still doing follow-ups from the Carrie Chapman Cat graphic organizer, to do those, have those conversations, especially if students are really struggling with a thesis statement or just moving from summary to analysis. That would be a good time to check in with them and get it right on that first speech before they move on to doing it again, because they're probably going to make the same mistakes again. Then students will bring that back complete tomorrow, and then let's go ahead and tie in, I think, lesson 13 to this as well. So I'm going to scan through the graphic organizers just for a completion grade. I think I would collect them and review the thesis statements just separately because this is a more active teaching lesson, lesson 13. Students are going to be learning about how the rhetorical analysis essay works and looking at their first rhetorical analysis essay prompt. So this slideshow, and by the way, all of these resources are included in the Unit 2 folder linked in the description of this video, but this just breaks down what the AP exam essays are like. This is their first exposure to it. Even though they're not doing this as a timed essay, it's out of class, it's still going to be good for them to know what they're working towards. So I talk about how they can develop their essays, we talk about sophistication and what that means, and then I give them the actual prompt, which is in that static language of the AP Lang exam. So I tell them they have to choose one of the last two speeches that we've read, so not Frederick Douglass because that's our model. Analyze rhetorical strategies the author uses to convey his or her message, addressing specifically how the author appeals to his or her particular audience. That's our prompt. And my guidelines for this essay, I actually do word maximums instead of word minimums. That came out of 175 AP Lang students, but I've kept that in there because I think the scope of this essay should be between about 500 and 750 words. I want them to practice an economy of language using precise, specific phrases. And I find that when I have a minimum, that invites fluffy, wordy diction I don't want, just for them to hit that minimum requirement. So this is a typed essay. I'm going to give them work days to develop this. And I just want them to cite quotes or paraphrases with just the paragraph number. That's sufficient for me. And they don't need a works cited page because it's an analysis essay of a text that I gave them. So that is the majority of lesson 13 is going through that. In the teacher resources in this unit, I have a model Frederick Douglass essay, and you might share that with them so they could see what that looks like and notice transitions, the verbs that are used, what's evidence versus what's commentary. So if you have a longer class period and time to do that, you might have them explore that or else save that for another lesson. But if they're new to rhetorical analysis essays, a model can be really helpful for this stage. All right, we're going to stop there for today with this lesson, and then the next ones have to deal with just the actual development of their first rhetorical analysis essay, which I know is actually a scary topic. I remember being really afraid of this first rhetorical analysis essay my first year of teaching. So definitely tune in for those. I'll give you all the tips and tricks I can think of for helping that process go more smoothly, especially if you have some really brand new to this type of writing students in your classes. Have a great rest of your day.